We're going to talk about something very real, the shift from traditional cloud ownership to a world of intelligent platforms. Because let's be honest, cloud helped us scale, but it also added a lot of operational heaviness. And that heaviness directly impacts developer velocity, compliance readiness, and frankly, how fast your businesses can innovate. And joining me today, someone who lives right in the middle of this evolution, is Vivek Viswanathan, Director of Product Management at Heroku. Vivek, it's amazing to have you with us.
Hey Shay, thanks for having me here and thanks for everybody listening in here. I'm glad to share some of the experiences and looking forward to the questions that come up.
Yeah. So for almost a decade, we saw this mad rush towards the cloud. It was like move everything, lift and shift. If it's not the cloud, you're behind. And cloud did solve a lot of that. But it also created something we don't talk about enough. And that is the operational complexity that it brings in. Suddenly, teams were hiring DevOps just to manage the cloud that was supposed to reduce their workload. Today, enterprises don't want infrastructure anymore. They want outcomes. And here's a simple analogy to understand how it really looks like. If AWS or GCP are like renting land and building your restaurant from scratch, Heroku is like walking into a fully equipped commercial kitchen. Everything is set up: electricity, plumbing, prep stations, ovens. You walk in and start cooking. If you want to scale for your customers, it's handled. If you want to, if it's about maintenance, it's being handled. And that's exactly what we call as platform intelligence. Vivek, could you please help us walk through on how enterprise agility evolved from on-prem infrastructures to IaaS, then PaaS, and then to intelligent platforms?
Yeah, certainly Shay. On-prem, I started my journey when I start my career. It was all about client server. We had servers almost, in the same building as us, some probably in the neighboring building. And globally, scaling those were really tough. You had to actually pipe not just the servers, but the premises to host them as well. So on-prem was something that came in. Some of the customers are still using that. Some are still moving into IaaS, which is basically infrastructure as a service, where you basically get your hardware, but you're still managing the OS and all the patching and all of that on your own to a great extent. So I still remember a time when we had an infrastructure as a service, not at Salesforce, one of my other companies, and I was actually waiting because I had to basically swap out a hardware. So we were waiting for that to happen. So infrastructure as a service came in, and then we had platform as a service where we manage everything except your code and data. And then comes intelligent platforms, especially with the AI world, where you basically need not just the CI/CD and the overhead of managing all those infrastructure and the CI/CD pipelines, but we also start to automate and provide you AI assistance. And we will talk about that in what Heroku provides in the AI space as well. But it gives you all the automation out of the box. It's like almost like a white glove service, as you talked about it. You come in, start building your app. You don't have to worry about which service to use, which is this service vetted out, is it compliant? All of those are taken care of by Heroku for you. So that's where intelligent platforms comes in, where we take care of everything about for you, including the AI assistance and predictive insights. And we'll see some of these examples as we go ahead.
All right. So we've seen every single day with customers that cloud gives them the flexibility, but it also introduces new inefficiencies. The teams that are using cloud spend 40 to 50% of their time on patching, scaling, monitoring, handling environment drift, and dealing with tech debt. Basically, everything except building business value, which is exactly what they should be focused on. So can you please help us understand the hidden cost of control that all of these companies or customers who are still using cloud are paying, and why works in staging but fails in production is somehow still a thing in 2025?
I can talk about this intrinsically because I've been part of some of the large deployments, not just in Heroku, but also on the Salesforce platform, being here for 16 years almost, and looked at large case customers, small case customers. So one of the challenges that you think about from a sandbox to production is maintaining that DevOps pipeline, having the rules built in so that when you propagate code from sandbox to productions, it meets the required thresholds to move it from sandbox to production. That doesn't It doesn't mean just writing a test suite, because I've seen tests that used to be, I equal to I plus plus, and you meet the test, the test coverage, and you still move forward. But tests that actually make sense and the ability to roll back if you really basically hit an issue, these are all things that you need to manage. And each one of these tools that you start to build around, which is like even from a DevOps perspective, you need to think about how you're going to patch them, how you're going to maintain that. These are all adding to your tech debt, which is not really building your application. A simple example is you need to upgrade your Postgres instance. You still need to keep upgrading those, even though you have something that kind of managed for you. Uh, and that means downtime. That means somebody who's a developer needs to allocate time for that. And it has to be managed across all platforms, not just in production, in your sandbox, in your dev, in your staging, all across. And this adds tech debt. Right, you'll say, okay, I'll not manage it now. I'll manage it a year later, and then a year later becomes 2 years, and then 3 years, and then you're out of compliance at the end of the day. So those are tech debts that are adding up, and that's the hidden cost of having that extra control that you are having to manage, and that starts to impact you when you're trying to build these AI apps and get to the market fast and provide value to your end customer, because ultimately you want to basically try and solve your business use case. All the peripherals, you want something that is handled for you. So they are, from a development perspective, you're focused, laser focused on getting your apps not just from an ideation perspective, but from an idea to GA, because ideation is just the step one, but getting to GA is a whole other picture.
Journey in
You need to
itself.
test it, yeah. And I would say it's more than a journey. It's almost like ideation is in the bottom of starting at, if you have ever done Everest, it's starting at the bottom, and going GA is almost going to the top
Like
of
a battle.
Everest. Yeah. So it's a journey, and each journey takes time. And the DevOps is almost like getting to Everest Base Camp, which is also a huge amount of work.
Yeah. I know a lot of people who feel that developers are slow, but I've tried to explain them that no, they really aren't. Like it's the systems around them that have become too heavy or too bulkier to be managed, which is taking a lot of their time, effort, and energy, and also focus, which all of which should be applied onto building the business logic or onto building the application or like driving or delivering the business value that we are trying to build through the application that we are trying to build, right? So
Yeah, and I've seen this time and again where we say, hey, developers are becoming slower. Even in this, it's not just from a Heroku standpoint or an AWS standpoint or a GCP standpoint, even from a Salesforce standpoint. If an org that is 10 years old, you are very well aware, because you built one trigger thinking, okay, that's the only trigger, and then 10 years hence you have 100 triggers there, and you have not rationalized whether those triggers really need to be a trigger, and so on. And since it's in one org, if you go into a multi-org, you now have 10 orgs with a similar burden in terms of your accounts and contacts and cases and the most common objects, even custom objects for that matter. What does that do? It essentially slows down your developer, because they have to now think about, should I really build this? Because it's going to start having errors. Well, the problem with adding such heavy objects is you're going to take time to save records, you're going to take time to query records. Ultimately, you're going to start hitting things like CPU issues, heap size issues. So your developers start to worry about aspects that they shouldn't be really worried about. They should be focused on solving your business use case and let the platform scale automatically for you. So yeah, developers on also is just making sure they have the right tools from the right get-go, so that they're not trying to re-engineer once they start hitting issues, but right from the start.